My intention today is to reflect back on some geometric works I've done in the past and art historical references along with the botany. We'll have a little Q&A afterward. Susan, can you see the slide?
I see the intro, the
Okay.
Summer Studio Visit 2023.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. And then that's my website as well. So, just to say, obelisk is a way of connecting major world powerhouses like Paris. There's even an obelisk in Central Park, Washington, D.C., and this sort of ancient power, this geometry, actually, Queen Hatshepsut. Anyway, I can go on with stories, but I'll just leave it at that. It's the triangle predominates greatly in my work. So welcome, welcome, welcome. You'll be admitting people if anybody else joins.
Yeah.
Okay.
We will see here.
Okay, perfect. All right. So the botanical paintings, first of all, I view botany as geometry in motion. I studied in Rome painting and printmaking, and Leonardo da Vinci, although the ancient Egyptians used the golden mean, Leonardo da Vinci popularized these proportions and noted that the middle of the human body was the belly button, and from that, extended arms and legs made a perfect circle. A square, if it revolves on its own axis, becomes a circle. And you'll see later on that I work a lot in circles, squares. Okay, and so he formalized these proportions not just for the human being, but also for the horses and other animals, and saw also that clouds and trees also grow with these spirals. He was able to make those links. Prior to the Italian Renaissance was the Islamic Renaissance, which we don't often hear about. This particular architecture was a mosque in ancient Iraq. It's called the Mosque of Samarra. It's a UNESCO World Heritage Site. Prior to becoming a painter, I really wanted to be an archaeologist. And so in this mosque, at the very top, the muezzin would do the daily or 5 times a day, the call to prayer. So I thought a lot about this mosque when I did a painting called Afterlife. It was a way of trying to deal with the horrors of this illegal war on Iraq. So Baghdad is burning, Iraq is burning, and yet this white, ethereal white spiral of light and energy, this thread that connects all of us, is beaming light and hope onto the crown chakra of this praying Muslim in this sort of floating garden. At the same time, I was dealing with my disillusionment about marriage. And so this cartoony character came off of a cocktail napkin that I got in Cairo. This painting foretold a Black presidency, the tsunami in Indonesia, and strangely, New York underwater. I did this well before Al Gore's Inconvenient Truth came out. And even though this monster of corporate greed is on top of a skyscraper in New York, he's beaming hate toward the Madonna, but she's protecting this praying Muslim in the garden. And I started it in Cairo. It's quite a large painting, as you see, full of art. So the latest work is, as you see behind me, and in this piece called Refuge with Deco Roses. This is 18 feet long, and it's painted, printed, and drawn and stenciled. You'll see like the sailing ships, they're actually oyster skipjacks from the Chesapeake Bay. So in this sort of maximalist composition, nature predominates as a remediating force in and of itself. Well, this piece is ongoing. I started it during the pandemic. It's on drop cloth. It's raw canvas, which is a way that I started working. It's inspired by the Washington Color School. And there's some personal narratives in there. There were some people who were sick, and at the time I was praying for a friend named Bubba, so I put the forsythia in there and then the daffodil for my friend Michelle. In the meantime, both of them have passed, and this piece helps me keep a channel open of communication to them. I think eventually there's gonna have there will be a state, a bird for each state. So far we have Alabama, which is this little lark, this little yellow lark. And yeah, so that's that piece. Also, I'm a master gardener, so a lot of the work that I'm doing is toward the New York show, growing native plants and things like that. Reference to the actual canvas, this is Sam Gilliam. He was a mentor of mine. He took the canvas off of the stretcher and offered other possibilities for space and time. The painting is imbued with dyes and paints, so it emanates the color in a very, very different way. These paintings then became tents, and that's what I'm doing in New York. I'm creating these places of reflection, of slowing down, of gathering, you know, especially after COVID. People have been isolated so much, and I think a lot of mental health plays into these works as well, you know, in terms of meditation and being healed by nature and each other and the gathering of people together. So this I did under lockdown. The hummingbird features as a heroine as a pollinator. You'll see the strawberry moon. I will be one to just drop whatever I'm doing to get in the car or on a bike and go see a full moon. To the right of the moon is these images came from Malibu of the California fires. And what I'm going to ask you to do is to try to imagine or memorize this lavender quadrant and then the mango or kind of burnt orange quadrant next to it, and see how it's reflected in a painting that was done more than 100 years ago by Hilma af Klint. It's kind of a reversal. It wasn't intended that way. And like Hilma af Klint and a lot of artists, I consider my work channeled. She was actually very overt. She was a Swedish artist, now considered the mother of 20 years after that Kandinsky piece was done. Richard Pousset Dart did the largest canvas in American history. He was an abstract expressionist. I was the first artist in residence at his estate in New York. I met him at the Phillips. I had a dream. The dream that I had was actually his house I came to see, and his wife just said, "Oh, Richard sent you. He sent you." They were very involved with the spiritual and art from, you know, hundreds of years ago. Like the abstract expressionist, I am responding to war. And this was done the night that Kabul fell. I was very disturbed by the thought of a child or a family member being left behind, and that in war there are no winners or losers. It's just gray. And there was a sergeant or a military soldier who came back, who had just come back from Afghanistan, and saw this painting, and he just shook his head with tears in his eyes, and he said, "It's all gray. It's just all gray," and was amazed that I did this painting. And so I guess what I'm saying is, for me, emotions are very, very important guides to a greater intelligence. So along with divine proportion, I believe there's divinity in all of us, and emotions can help. Also, this piece is called Dwayne. It highlights, again, this sort of nature grid, that of brain coral, and these sort of shooting stars or neurotransmitters, an urban grid. So the juxtaposition of both of those, and to kind of create an overall movement where the circle is, the square is starting to spin a bit. This is one of my last paintings, and one of the last paintings I'll talk about right now in this slideshow. I did it under COVID. It was first a reaction to Hurricane Maria and President Trump's throwing paper towels at people in Puerto Rico who had just lost homes and family members. My absolute rage at that level of cruelty. It took quite a while, 4 years or so, to revisit that painting, and under COVID, and with more of a practice of TM twice a day, these kind of little orbs or floating oxygen cells. 10 minutes. Okay. All right. So, and then suddenly this orb of the earth came, and, in the 70s, this is a very important image where we all saw ourselves floating on this fragile, orb. And so then the title of that painting came Rebirth the Earth, also as a response to, one second, the Mars adventures. And I really saw that the inner life was the new frontier. I'm going to take you into the studio right now. I mean, we're in the studio, but I want to show you just a little glimpse of a painting that I'm working on. It's going to be one of 6 panels, along with a garden. The space is at the Equity Gallery on Broome Street on the Lower East Side, and it opens on September 7th. So we'll probably, have something live from there. Hello, Brianna and Duff. So this is quite a large table. I just want to show you really fast that the images are painted. The rose is actually the state flower for New York. There will be more butterflies and pollinators, milkweed. I'm growing some milkweed right now. And it's created by stencils that I make out of paper. Another stencil. The New York State bird is a bluebird. And then silkscreen. And my BFA was in printmaking. So this is a way of uniting the images, and you'll just have to stay tuned. I welcome you to visit the studio sometime, and if you have any questions, feel free. I will sit down again. Oh, maybe you want to just see the hallway. Speaking of art and diplomacy, this was the home of Calvin Coolidge at one time. And so yeah, art and diplomacy, here we go. Do you have any questions, Susan?
Yeah.
Just curious.
For around 6 minutes.
We have about 6 minutes to chat if you'd like.
I'm taking it in. I'm fascinated, and I'm mesmerized and educated. I'm just, have you been influenced at all by Klimt?
Huh, that's an interesting question. I wish I knew more about him. I mean, certainly, what's not to love about Klimt? I would not be surprised if he had a lot of similar influences that I do, I'm sure I'm influenced by
Yeah.
almost every.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
Mm.
the emotional part of your, what you were saying is just, it's really, it resonates right now. I can see that. Yeah.
I mean, that's an interesting question. And Chagall, like I never would equate my
Yeah.
work with like being influenced by Chagall, but when I visited the Philadelphia Museum of Art just recently, to see, you know, the Frank Gehry um edition,
Mhm.
the Chagall was missing. And then I remembered it's actually bright yellow and it's raw canvas like he did at
Mhm.
the Lincoln Center. And I was devastated. I was like, this is not my museum anymore. Anyway, that's how
Uh-huh.
silly and romantic I can, you know, romantic or whatever. Have a hard time letting go.
No, I think you can feel that soulfulness, I think, in everything you do. Yeah.
Mm.
Interesting.
You could say Klimt was an early maximalist.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah, and somehow in this maximalist, like I admire people who can say things in just 2 words, or you know, in Japanese or you know,
Yeah.
Asian aesthetics, especially with the sumi ink brush, you know, to describe
Right.
a plant. Ellsworth Kelly, for example, does the most amazing drawings of like a sunflower, and it's just like, no way could I ever do
Mhm.
that. But
Yeah.
I think somehow with all the maximalism, the thought process leaves and it just becomes more of this energy field or something.
Hmm. I get that. So when is your show in New York?
So it's going to be the first week of September and it's during the Armory Week. The opening is on Thursday and then the Armory shows start the next night, I think. So
Mhm.
I'll be up for the entire week. It's a small gallery, but it's been in existence since 1940, which is really
Mhm.
cool.
Mhm.
Um, and it's on the Lower East Side, so it's really super groovy. I was just there last week. It's really come back to life. I mean, living in New York during COVID was kind of sad, but the
Mhm.
dancers were out there every night, including January,
Yeah.
Mhm.
dancing at the Natural History Museum. It was really
Mhm.
amazing. So, yeah.
Cool.
So thank you so much for joining and taking time out of your
Okay.
day.